Hi, welcome back for another virtual drop-in art class. My name is Janice Baylor, and I want to give a very big thank you to Perry County Council of the Arts for continuing our drop-in program online. Today we are going to work on a really cool project based off of the African American quilters of Gee's Bend, Alabama. They worked in the true tradition of quilting to make beautiful works of abstract art out of items that they had to repurpose from their everyday lives. If you want to learn more about the artwork of the women of Gee's Bend, we have a few educational resources linked below. Please check it out and expose yourself to some of the amazing work of great American artists. So today we are going to work on making our own version of a quilt with collage, using paper collage, and I will show you all of the supplies that you need to make today's project. Coming right up. Today's project, you will need a piece of cardboard or construction paper. I'm using black just because I think it will really set off some of the fun colors that we're going to use. A magazine that you can cut apart, a pair of scissors, and a glue stick. To get started, the women of Gee's Bend typically worked with solid colors and maybe a few stripes and dots because they were using up leftover clothing to make not only something that could be comforting to their families, but also use just materials that were available since they did not have access to any luxury materials whatsoever. And that is the true tradition of quilting. So when you're going through your magazine, go ahead and look for a few areas of color that you see that are mostly solid. And then all you need to do to prepare the blocks of your quilt, or the faux fabric for what we're making today, is to cut into strips or like little tile-sized pieces, a bunch of colors that you want to work with that are inspiring to you, or that maybe help you think about something that you enjoy about the summer or your life, or that express you. And I think some that maybe have a few dots that might look like worn clothing would be particularly in the tradition of what we're making today. So go ahead and look through and cut out a few inspirational colors. I'm going to cut out a little bit of dark green also. And you can just use whatever you like. I would use bright colors because they often used bright colors of their clothing. Leftover clothes were their main materials. And I also think that will pop really nicely on the black background that we're using, or even on the white background if you choose to go with white. Again, it's up to you. And try to cut straight like you would if you were making a nice quilt out of fabric, but also some irregularity is beautiful, and often fabric shifts when you're sewing with it. So having a little bit of not quite perfect is actually what helps bring some of the beauty to the project. So to start, I'm going to make mine in the form of a card, so you could write a great note to a friend. So I am going to go ahead and fold my piece of construction paper in half and make a nice crease down the center so that you have a card or a little booklet you could write in it or continue drawing. And I've already gotten this one started, so I started with a central block, and then I am leaving a little thin gap as I piece my squares around. So you can either do a rectangular design, you can start with a central block, or a lot of the women from Gee's Bend would just have kind of an idea of an image in their mind, like maybe they would be thinking about the streets in their community, or places that they worked, or in this particular thing, we could maybe be thinking of the image of the river that they lived next to in Alabama. And you can leave a little bit of a gap that kind of makes the impression of sewing around a block, and it really sets these off into a beautiful piece of abstract art. So use up what you have to make your own beautiful piece of artwork, just like the women of Geese Bend. And if you get to a spot where it doesn't quite fit, go ahead and give it a trim, because that's what you would do if you were making an abstract quilt as well. You would use what you had, and if you needed to cut a piece to fit, you would do that. There's in the article, if you choose to read that below, one of the artists talks about how she wanted to make her quilt larger, so she used an old pair of jeans to extend the material that she had to use. And when people complimented her on her ingenuity, she said, "I was just using what I had to get what I needed." And I found some more blue, and I'm just going to continue adding to my quilt, my collage, until I have filled it all up the way that I like. I think this is great because you can really try to think about things that inspire you in your life and where you live, and kind of try to think about expressing that in just really simple blocks of color. So here in Pennsylvania, we are lucky enough to live near a lot of beautiful woodland, as well as rivers and mountains. We have beautiful sunsets, and some of that can be very inspirational in your artwork as well. Here I was even able to find kind of a texture of grass in my magazine clippings, and I'm going to add that to my quilt collage also. There's this one I'm going to trim down a little bit. You have a few little leftover scraps, add those on too, because that's very much in the quilting tradition as well. If you come to a little spot and you notice, oh, I just need a little piece over here, then that is what us quilters would do. We would add on something that fit in that space and make it work. And that's what's so fun about the tradition of quilting, is when you think about all of the artists throughout history who had taken just the need to reuse something like old clothing or feed sacks and turn it into not only a beautiful work of art, but something that could be used to keep their family comforted and warm. And that's what I particularly love about the tradition of quilting. It's a great way to express yourself and make something that also expresses love. Now you can see here I'm kind of going for a island next to the river, which is where the women of Geese Bend lived. So that's what I'm expressing here through my piece of art, but you can express whatever is near and dear to you. So you can think about that as you are applying your squares and rectangles. Just think of an abstract way that you can express your place in the world or your feelings. And it doesn't have to look any particular way. It's just a fun way to express yourself in color and pattern. And I'm just going to cut a few more pieces to fill in, and then I think I'm all done. And here is your beautiful Gee's Bend inspired quilt paper collage. And you can write in the tradition of quilts, you could write a beautiful caring message and send someone a little love. Thanks for joining me today, friends. Stay creative.